morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter what time you're watching this. It is Sunday morning, so forgive the eyes, forgive the look, but I'm delighted to be joined by Julie Clarke from the Fan Advisory Board. With everything that's going on at the moment, there's a lot of noise, whether you're one side, the other side, in the middle. Absolutely delighted to be joined by Julie. Julie, good morning. Thanks for joining Across the Park. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. Despite the Man U clash, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's away from what we're going to talk about. It's the team at the minute. They do need some help. So I think in January, for me, Julie, we actually need to go and get a striker.
Yep.
Yeah, to get some goals in that team. But first of all, I was reading your profile on a Fan Advisory Board. It looks like you've been away from the city for a while, but you're still going to all the games. So just go back to how you became an Evertonian and why you became an Evertonian and some favourite memories and moments from growing up.
Okay, well, I've been an Evertonian for a long time. I'm very old. I'm 62 now, so I go back to winning the cup in 1966. That's my earliest memory of loving Everton. My big brother, who I idolised, was already a Blue and went to the games, and I can remember, and I hope this memory is a real one, and I haven't made it up. But my memory of that day is that we'd gone out to the seaside, and we're all in the car. We're coming back and listening to it on the radio. And my dad was a Red, so just sort of trying to tune in the radio, and it was 2-0. And then we lost all the reception. By the time we got home, we'd won 3-2. And so that's my earliest memory of supporting them, of wanting them, being eager for them to win and being excited about them winning. So it's been ever since then. And it's been a long, long, arduous road. And there's been some fantastic times and some awful times as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really envious of your memory of the '66 Cup final. It's something that my dad used to put on the VHS for me and show me because he was so proud of that day. I think he was a young Evertonian at the time, and he used to say that was one of the best moments. I think the proper Everton way of doing things, of going 2-0 down and then to bring a cup back into the city. And again, you've declared your age there, so I imagine the '80s was such a good time as well.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so were you at the games during that great period in the '80s? What many memories from that period?
Yeah, some of them, not a real lot of them. I'm from a large family, one of 10 children. We've got 9 surviving. So obviously there wasn't obviously the opportunity nor the funds to be having season tickets or going to all of the games. I'd say I started going properly regularly during the 1980s and have since almost that time had a season ticket right the way through, apart from the odd time I've thrown a fit of pig and said, that's it, I'm not renewing, but I don't. And then I always end up going back and renewing the ticket. So, so ever since then, I can remember all the fabulous players that I've watched, and I've been lucky enough to watch, in the flesh playing, and also the ones I remember from my childhood that I maybe didn't get to watch, but watched on TV and knew of, the likes of Bob Latchford and people like that. Yeah. But all the way through, I left Liverpool more than 30 years ago, and coming up with the London Supporters Club and then other supporter groups, because I've moved out of London now as well, and then just travelling with groups of fans in cars and minibuses, and coming up and seeing the fabulous teams we've had with people like Tommy Gravison, Lee Carsley, Tim Cahill, those kind of players as well, and going back even further than that, Dave Watson, Paul Rideout sort of days. It's just been a fabulous journey, and I want to say sometimes, in light of what we're going through at the moment, I always want to say to people, and I do to my nephews and nieces, we've been through times like this before, but we get through it, and there are great times will come again.
I hope you're right. You've touched upon there where we are right now. That there's a reason that that you've came on the show. Really, we're not here just to talk about how great Everton are and the teams that we're in a moment where fans are unhappy. A lot of fans are unhappy. You're on the Fan Advisory Board. Can you just explain to people who maybe aren't aware of what that is? What is the Fan Advisory Board?
Right. So, and I'm glad you asked me this, because a lot of fans out there don't know. And to be fair, I didn't when I first applied. I wasn't fully aware myself of what the remit was going to be. And I might have thought, like other fans think, that it's just another supporters group, and it's very much not that. We are a board. We are all obviously fans because we had to be members, but we're a board who act as a sort of a conduit for fan engagement between fan groups, individual fans and fan groups, and the club itself. And our remit is to meet with the club and discuss, lobby, canvass, question strategic decision making for the club. So we would be talking about things like ticket pricing, the new stadium, that kind of level. We wouldn't be. You know, I get people coming up to me, can you have a word with the board about the state of the flipping ale in the bar? Go to the fans forum. That's not what we're there for. But we are fed in by all of the groups. All of the groups feed in rather. So we got fans forum. We've got the EDSA, the disabled supporters, the women's supporters, the heritage. We've got several groups that all feed into us. So at each of our meetings, so we hear from them. We then, look at the issues that we need to discuss with the board, which are strategic, not fan and game based or player based, and we feed that kind of thing back to the board when we have our regular meetings with them.
No, it's when I first seen it, I think similar to how you've just said there, I wasn't sure what it was. I was asking to vote on people and reading people's sort of petition to jump on the board, and it was sort of like, who do I want to go on this board, and I don't really know what it is. So it's really helpful to hear you actually give clarity on actually what the Fan Advisory Board is, because even myself, who do this podcast, I'm a little bit, what actually is that?
Yeah.
Moving forward a little bit, for you personally, why did you want to join the Fan Advisory Board, and what was the process like?
Okay, so I saw these emails that end up in your spam from Everton Direct and Everton, all the different Everton things. So I actually didn't see this email until about 2 days before the application deadline. And I looked at it and I just thought, well, you know what? I've been traveling to these games for 30 odd years. I've put a lot into it. Sometimes it's taken sort of around a quarter of my salary to, in some years to follow them, obviously. And I've travelled up and down the country with various fans from not just Liverpool expats, but fans from all over. And we've sat and whinged and moaned on the train and on the bus about things, but never thought we could go and get our voices heard. So I thought, well, I think I'm a good fit for this. I think I could do this. So I set about filling out the application form. And therein lay the problem, because I filled out all of the application form. Then there was a problem getting it through. It wasn't going through. And I luckily I took screenshots of everything. I sent it off to the ESSG folks and said, look, I am trying to get this through. I've got to go to the match. It was the Crystal Palace game coming up. I've got to leave. Sent everything through to those. Went to the Crystal Palace game, and what can I say about that? Obviously, got back at 2:00 in the morning, and there's an email waiting for me saying they hadn't got the stuff, and I thought, oh God, I've missed the deadline. Luckily, the ESSG group guys that had all got all of my, and they said, "Don't worry, we've told them and we've passed everything on." So I got in by the skin of my teeth, and then I literally just had to tell family and friends, about it. And I don't do social media. I'm one of those weirdos. Happily does not do social media, and not because of any, I'm not a technophobe. I write websites and things like this. I just choose.
Yeah.
I like my privacy, but
Yeah.
so I then had to rely on family and friends and people I've met over the years, and I didn't realise until that time what a wide network of contacts I had, really,
Mhm.
and they were able to canvass for me, and luckily I was voted on.
No,
So I'm one of
brilliant. Again, an
the,
eye opener into how things do happen. You've said there it was you've not been on the fan advisory board for too long, maybe not even going into a half a year, maybe just over perhaps. But could you give us an example maybe of some interactions that the fan advisory board have had with the club to date since you've been there, and what sort of context is in those meetings?
Okay, so when we meet the club, first time we met them was in July. We were all appointed in June. We had a meeting in early July. That was an introductory meeting, and we were met then in the boardroom by Graham Sharp and Denise Barrett Baxendale, and then various other members of the club's management and
Mhm.
leadership. And we just all introduced each other, had a chat round, said what we were, what our backgrounds were. Denise explained to us that she'd fed into this fan-led review, which Tracy Cratch did, that brought about the fan advisory boards, so that it was her passion to have one at
Yeah.
Everton, and everybody we were pretty much the first club really to have ours properly set up and functioning. So that's no bad thing. We did quite well in that respect. Everton did quite well in that respect. When we go to the meetings, we have meetings every month just for us 10 who are on the
Yeah.
FAB, and quarterly we have meetings with the club.
Okay.
So the directors will come. Graham Sharp is the dedicated director that attends every one of those meetings. The chief executive is committed to at least 2 of those meetings, those quarterly meetings, and we would bring anybody else in if depend on what's on the agenda, and we do contribute to the agenda for those, obviously. And for instance, at our last meeting, we had Kevin Thelwell there,
Okay.
and we were able to ask him questions. So the club do commit to, making those meetings meaningful for us. And if they weren't, and if we weren't able to speak to the people that we would like to have at those meetings, then we'd make our feelings known. We are completely independent and autonomous. This is what people don't get, and I know this. Although I don't have social media account, I do see it,
Yeah.
and I know that some people have got this impression that we are we're in there a lot more often than we are, and we've got much more contact with the board of directors than we do. We don't. We have these meetings every month, and we meet the club quarterly. We have, however, got a remit within our terms and understanding that we can call extraordinary meetings if the situation arises, and that would be something like if the European Super League
Yeah.
made an attempt to re-establish itself, that kind of a huge thing, or something to do with the new stadium, perhaps.
Mm.
So any major thing like that came up, we would be able to go and ask for an extraordinary additional meeting.
Wow. Okay. So there's communication between yourselves and the club. I think that word communication has came up an awful lot. It's arguably one of the forefronts of this All Together Now hashtagging this All Together Now campaign, which is which has really came out strongly. I'm not going to ask for personal opinions. I think that would be really unfair. I'll stick to my belief at the moment that I think this is the biggest campaign that's happened against the boards in probably an awful long time. I think only the Blue Union would match the noise and the volume of people who are joining this, putting their name to it. You put, maybe not you, but the fan advisory boards have reacted already on social media with a really nice statement. I'll just read a little bit of that out for you. It says, you know how much the club means to all Evertonians, and you fully acknowledge the concerns and views that are currently being expressed about the club's current predicament. The Fan Advisory Board was established to ensure that the views of all Evertonians are taken into account in the strategic decision-making process at Everton Football Club. We want to make sure that Evertonians have the opportunity to share their views or concerns about the strategic direction of the club. Really, really well worded statement. I think it went down really, really well on social media, despite what side you're on. Can you just give us a little bit of context behind that? Are the plans to speak to the club? Are you allowed to have not their back, but can you voice their concerns and maybe the way some fans would want?
Yeah, you're right. So it is. I mean, it's certainly the biggest one that I can remember in terms of it being out there and being communicated. I mean, I do remember times when, Mike Walker days and things like this. There have been other times before social media when there were, there was huge strength of feeling and we weren't doing very well and that kind of thing. And I was at, the Wimbledon and the Coventry games, when we were in similar positions. So this is big, and there is no denying that. Because us as individual members of the FAB and also as group representatives on the FAB, we can all have diverse opinions. We are a diverse group. Okay. But one thing is we must represent all fans. We can't represent any particular group. That does, however, not stop us from being aware of the strength of feeling, and we definitely are aware of the strength of feeling. So you may or may not know, we have very, very rapidly organised meetings. We've got 4 meetings set up, all happening next week. We've got 2 face-to-face meetings and 2 online meetings.
Wow.
The fans have all been invited to. I've got the details for those. I can give you those if you want me to. So when fans come to meet us, and whether they do it face-to-face or online, we will be collating all of the information that we've been given, and we'll be taking that forward to the club. Okay. I mean, the ire has mainly been directed to the major shareholder, and that's not somebody that we have direct contact or influence with, because we work with the directors of the club. We work with the club rather than the shareholders. We work with the executive leadership team of the club. So when we hear from the rest of the fans, and like I say, we are offering them 4 opportunities in the next couple of weeks to come and meet us. Make no mistake, we will be collating all of those feelings, the strength of that feeling, and reporting it back to the club. And we will, of course, then report back to the fans via our social media and our website, which is published very shortly.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that you made there, that despite personal opinion, that it's a diverse group and you have to represent, you have to bring in all sections of the fan base, whether it be perceived. I imagine the club, this is me saying this, I imagine the club aren't overly pleased with what's happening, but you're still going to go and say, this is where we are, and we want some sort of answers to feedback, whether it be minutes or whether it be coming back on something like this and give us some clarity to the fan base. Because communication, again, my personal opinion, can be better, but it's only helped by people like you who do go in and speak to the club. Is You've said there you're meeting the fans over the next, there's 4 meetings booked in over the next couple of weeks. There's some more things going on. Are there any plans? Are there any dates or timetables for when you can speak to the club?
Our next scheduled meeting with the club, our next scheduled quarterly meeting with the club is next month, so it's not that far away. However, the information that we get from these meetings that we're having, shall I just tell you briefly when these meetings are? We've got, I've written it down so that because I wouldn't remember it off the top. Wednesday the 11th of January, we've got face-to-face meeting 7 p.m. The venue's yet to be confirmed, but it will be on our Twitter account. So that's a face-to-face Wednesday 7th at 7 p.m. It will be somewhere near or around Goodison. It will be in that vicinity. Thursday the 12th, 7 p.m, and that will be on Zoom. That will be an online. Thursday the 12th at 7. Then Sunday the 15th, the day after the Southampton game, that'll be a 1 p.m. Sunday. Again, that will be a face-to-face.
Right.
And that will be somewhere near Goodison. And then finally, we've got another online Zoom on Monday the 16th at 7 p.m. So we've got a face-to-face, then an online, then a face-to-face, then an online. There's 4 opportunities there for fans to come and meet us and tell us what they want us to relay to the club. Like I said, we consolidate all of the thoughts. We'll summarise it. We'll take it to the club, and then we will come back to the fans and with the response that we get.
So we maybe be hoping for sometime in February to have some sort of communication coming back. Now, whether the club do that beforehand, I don't know. I hope they do, but at least we know through you in February you might have some sort of minutes coming back from dialogue.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there will be a meeting. There will be the scheduled meeting anyway in February, the scheduled quarterly meeting in February. But this is such a huge issue. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something to report back before then. I just can't give that commitment this time for obvious reasons, because we haven't gathered all the information and put it to the club yet.
Yeah. No, it's been refreshing to speak to you. I've learned a lot already. I'm a concerned Evertonian, so it's nice to know that despite whether me and you agree or not, I don't know, I'm not going to ask, but at least you're going to go in and have my concerns, fed over to the board and a number of other fan groups who are really concerned. Away from the Altogether Now motion that we're going through, are there any other plans or direction for the FAB and the club coming up over the next year? Do you have any ideas yourself on how you'd like to move things forward with the club on all aspects of the club?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were quite involved in the fan-led review, and we were down at Parliament. I actually went down to Parliament in November to attend the all-party parliamentary group, the APPG, to canvass on the fan-led review and the independent regulator of football. The FSA and Tracy Crouch and also Stuart Andrew, the sports minister, set up this meeting. It was entitled the Fan-Led Review 1 Year On. And the white paper for that, which is to take that legislation through Parliament, it needs to start with a white paper, and that was supposed to be published in July. It was then put back to the autumn, very vague autumn, but it was put back, and it hasn't appeared yet. So we were adamant to know, we were determined rather to know, is it still going ahead? Has it been put on a back burner? Because with what's gone on in government this year, there was some talk after, during the changes of leadership that we've had, that it was going to be put on a back burner, that it wasn't important enough. Rishi Sunak came in, and we've been assured it is back on the front burner, and Stuart Andrew said at that meeting, it's his number one priority. Anybody that thinks it won't happen, they're wrong. It will happen. And Tracy Crouch hopes it's going to go through within the year. It's very, very important we have an independent regulator in football, because we don't want to see nonsense that we've seen of the European Super League, what happened to Burnley, the state that some clubs are left in through financial mismanagement,
Yeah.
and the wide variances there are in club spending. There needs to be an independent regulation. We fully support that, and we're behind the FSA who are asking for it as well. So we're quite involved in that. We will be at some stage. We're discussing holding a conference, a fans conference, somewhere up in Liverpool. We've only been going 6 months, and a lot of that time when you first set up, a lot of that time is taken up in sorting out your terms of reference and meeting formulations and that kind of thing. Going forward in the years to come, when long after I've gone, these things will just happen as a matter of course. But we're in the first 6 months, and we've had a lot to sort out. So we will be having a conference, and as soon as that's sorted, that will be out on our social media and on our website. We are always happy to hear all of our emails that are out there on the website, on Everton's website, and will be on our own website and on Twitter for people to get in touch with us. We're always happy to hear from fans, and all fans who get in touch with us get a response as well.
Yeah, the ticker down below, it's the EFC Fan Advisory Board. If you go on Twitter, it's at EFC_Fan Advisory Board. And like Julie said there, you will get communication back. We're a prime example of that. Very kindly reached out, and within a day we're doing this show. So thanks very much, Julie. I hope the questions haven't been too hard. I do have to ask you before we go. We started on your own memories. We're going to end on that. I'm going to have to ask you the hardest question I've asked all show. Who's the greatest Everton player you've ever seen?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, in my childhood, I'm just
give me a few. You can give me a few.
It would have been Bob Latchford, but I do have a really soft spot for Duncan McKenzie, who was a beautiful player to watch, fabulous player. I've met him since at some of our engagement things down in London. He's a lovely man, and also Graham Sharp attends our meetings, and I very embarrassingly listed out some of my favourite players. I miss Graham Sharp off. Sorry, Graham. I'm sorry about that. More recently, Andrew Kanchelskis. What can I say? I mean, a fantastic world-class player. I loved him. And the only other player I've seen that made me feel, had the same effect on me was not a blue. That was Dennis Bergkamp. But I would say Andrew Kanchelskis was in the same. More recently, like I mentioned, Tommy Gravison, Lee Carsley, Tim Cahill, and most recently for me, Leighton Baines. Please don't ask me about the current team because it changed. Sometimes I love Alex Iwobi and sometimes he frustrates me to death.
Yeah.
That's what can I say? I can't say one. Kanchelskis probably have had to.
It's fair. I couldn't argue with any names that you said there. It's been a pleasure to speak to Julie. I'm really, really grateful on a Sunday morning for you to give us half an hour of your time to talk to Evertonians. Anybody watching this, please go on the Twitter and follow the Fan Advisory Board. It's at EFC_Fan Advisory Board. I found this episode really fascinating. A lot of context and a lot of things that I maybe didn't know. I hope you have, who are watching and listening as well. Close now. Julie, thank you so much for joining Across the Park podcast. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. I know you're going to be busy. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks.